All right, topic here is on the importance of building some redundancies in how you're building your AI delivery stack. And Claude has done a ton here to stay on the forefront of being able to simplify how we interact with a bunch of different types of skills across our different delivery clients. The challenge is what happens when that goes down. And so we kind of found out the hard way the other day that if you're overly dependent upon Claude as a work surface, and that is the only way that you interact now with some of the different workflows for client delivery, then the morning that Claude is no longer working, it's like the company didn't show up for work. It's like half your company is just not there anymore. And it was pretty crippling for at least a day where we were trying to figure out what to go do. And the nice thing is the way that we designed a lot of the tools we're building, we build everything around skills. Skills are markdown files, and those markdown files are organized by client into plugins. And those plugins are organized inside of a marketplace. That's our Trelliswork marketplace, and that's managed in code in GitHub. So our entire delivery stack is effectively a code base. The nice thing about that is that it's a fairly open standard on how you define a skill in markup language and Markdown. And from there, you can port that. So we were able to take that exact same GitHub repository, which is again not a Claude specific build. It has some Claude configuration settings, but being able to port that over into Grok and then Codex, we were able to do in quite literally like the morning. Like, so in 15 minutes, Grok was up and running. And that was getting Grok at the terminal to be able to just from a folder, the same way I would with Cowork, launch a Grok interface versus launching a Claude interface. It was interchangeable. And there was some translation that Grok did to make it work with the Claude code base that we had designed this for. But it was like no joke 15 minutes to get to get Grok working with that exact same set of skills that we defined for, again, the brand voice and ICP definition and white paper skills to be able to go create assets for clients. So point being is that there's a redundancy there that's so important right now that people are, I think, probably overlooking, which is not only when the harness, which is Claude Cowork, when that goes down, what do you do? But all the connectors that you've built into other tools like Webflow, HubSpot, and all these, those are also not very hardened, I would say. So like we'll have as an example today, like literally today, Webflow doesn't work from Claude specifically. It works from Claude Code, but not from Claude Cowork, and it works from every other, from what I can tell, AI harness. So Grok and Codex both work fine connecting into Webflow via MCP server, but Claude Cowork doesn't. So if that's the state, you better have a redundancy in place. And if you don't, it's like you're telling your client, I can't work today because so and so is sick. That's effectively reality, which is kind of wild. I will say the nice thing is that it is a very well understood pattern on how to go compartmentalize these into skill sets, plugins, and marketplaces. And that's the model that, again, gives you that portability. It's not trivial, or it's trivial in concept, but not in practice to go actually get in the weeds and do all this. One example we found, right, is that you'll take like an ideal customer profile. So we'll define an ICP for a client. There's one train of thought, which is like, okay, great. Now that ICP lives in a document called a markdown file, and it's just in the delivery folder. For us, that's Google Drive. The problem though is every single time you want to go use that, you got to remember where it's at. You got to make sure that Claude finds it. You got to use tokens to go consume it. The better version is that once you've gotten something like that to a final state, you actually want to just turn that into a skill, because that skill can be referenced anywhere else inside of your code base or inside of your delivery stack. So if you've decided to go confine your scope or your context to a specific folder underneath where you actually define that ideal customer profile, then one version of it says it won't have access to it because it won't traverse back up the folder structure. But if you have that encoded as a skill and you tell it, hey, go grab this skill, it's the same thing as having like you're just loading a module, right? And from a code standpoint, you're importing something that you've defined and encapsulated as a library that you want to pull in somewhere else in a code base. It's very similar in a marketing sense. So I think thinking like developers and engineers in marketing is the other key here that is so important for us that we're realizing is paying dividends, which is if you can think that way about how to design these systems, they're behaving very similarly to how we might have otherwise designed engineering systems and code bases, in that you're compartmentalizing and you're trying to make it so that you can refactor these types of outputs in a way that's not us reinventing the wheel every single time, and you have a single source of truth that helps. That looks like almost dictionaries and libraries for how to go find up, maybe looking at a database for content to serve up a web page. So that's much more similar to where these things go if we're building scalable systems.